This is my fourth and final case in this presentation for TBIs. And this is of a young boy in grade 11 who had his most severe concussion 2 years prior to on the right side of his head, more in the temporal area actually. And this is his third concussion playing hockey, and it was the last time he played hockey. The next 16 months at home were full of daily outbursts and at times violent episodes. While driving in the car on the highway one day when they were driving, he punched his brother repeatedly in the head for no good reason at all. He had many aggressive attacks at home. In fact, he kicked in the walls both inside and outside the home. When he came home from school, he would generally go straight downstairs and play violent video games, which the parents had difficulty controlling. And then he would be angry for days on end. He also was typically sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night, and that was the best he could do. That too was another problem. Now, before he had his first concussion, he was an honor student at school. By his third, he barely passed school, and then he got into trouble when he threatened to kill a group of girls in school, which certainly isn't good. He went to 3 neurologists that are concussion specialists. And these are also specialists at the Stollery Children's Hospital, and his MRI showed no physical damage. So what do you do when you have a child who goes violent? The doctors claim there's nothing wrong. Then he injures or kills somebody, and then he ends up in jail. It is a very terrible system that would happen to someone, especially when the treatment is so easy to implement. Now here's his raw EEG here. What we can see is he's lost his alpha waves pretty much everywhere except the very bottom trace down here. We do see his alpha rhythm at O2, which is the back right-hand side of his head, and that's about all. But we see some other issues going on. We see white matter damage here. Look at those delta waves coming in through, rolling in through here. Otherwise, he's pretty much flat, choppy, and not much else going on. Now I'm going to show you this spectral array, and these are the different sites on his brain, and showing this spectrally because I'm going to be using a spectral array when I get into the Alzheimer's example a little later on. And what we can see is that his delta activity is very, very high, and that's all slow brain waves, difficulty making decisions, difficulty having emotional control, and so on. And his alpha at 10 is gone. And of course, that's partly why he has anxiety and a sleep disorder. The only place he does make alpha primarily is at O2, right in here. He makes a little bit at O1, and these are the only parts of his brain that did not get damaged. When we look at him on the 1 Hertz bins analysis, frequency analysis, we see all the delta is pounding him out right here, and that's the strongest spot. We also see some obsessive compulsive showing up in his signature, and that likely has a lot to do with his violent video games and aggression. To some degree, he can't get his mind off things once he's mad. When we look at him on the statistical analysis on the database, we of course see his his alpha is gone, essentially gone, and we also see on the database that his delta is extremely high. Look at his phase. Overall, his phase isn't too bad, and this is partly because in delta, we saw that his delta waves were rather in step with each other, so we're not going to see too much of a delta phase issue, despite him actually having a real delta problem. When we look at his faster brain waves, in this case in the sensory motor rhythm range, which is 12 to 15, we see because O1 and particularly O2 are the only parts of the brain that are actually working, they're out of step with the remainder of the brain, and so it looks like they have the dysfunction, when reality is the dysfunction is in all the other parts of the brain, but O2 and partially O1. This is entrainment, using an SMR beta blend with the lights, with the audiovisual stimulation, and we see that he's generating alpha all through the record now. See clusters of it here, clusters of it here. It's all over the place. And when we look at his spectral array, we now see a nice peak right at 10 all the way through the record here, through most areas. And it's also where it should be, which is more on the right parietal area. So this is very good. This is looking at on the microvolt data scale, so not with the database. And look at this beautiful alpha right in here. That's where it belongs. And that's looking very nice. And it's also dominating his delta, and his delta actually has gone down a fair ways. And that's good to see. On the database itself, he has very normalized activity. Remember what he looked like before? There's the statistical, his normed data there with no alpha and high delta. Now here is he's now, the greenish color at 0 is very, very normal. It's very rare that even normal people are this normal looking. We see some of the entrainment effects because we are using 20 hertz in the entrainment, and some of that has shown up at the 20 hertz level. Here's his phase. Now, all of his brain pretty much on phase was recruited back, except for the site of the injury itself. T4 is still having an issue with the rest of the brain. It's not getting on board too well. But this is only 20 minutes. Over time, this will improve. What his parents had to report, they said he is clear-headed now. He can pay attention longer in class. His mood has improved actually greatly. And he's much more social. Before, like I mentioned, he would just go right into the basement and play video games, and he would just yell at his parents, would have nothing to do with them. Now he comes upstairs frequently, and he likes to chat with his parents. So the parents are very pleased about that. But the parents are also using audiovisual entrainment. The mom is reporting her balance has improved during yoga. Her mind is more relaxed, and she sleeps better using the alpha theta session. The father, who is a bit of a high-strung person, finds himself being calmer and sleeping better using theta. As you may have noticed, I've been talking about sleep deprivation in all of these people who are struggling with thalamocortical interrupts from relating to TBIs. Well, sleep deprivation is certainly important. And take a look at all these studies on sleep deprivation and how they do cause brain dysfunction, Alzheimer's, and chronic traumatic encephalitis. Here's one study. Sleep deprivation under 6 hours reduces cerebral blood flow, focus, memory, while increasing depression, obesity, and risk of Alzheimer's disease. Those with diffuse axonal TBIs suffer from very poor sleep shortly following their injury.